everyone, and welcome back to our series of interviews with Euros members across the world. It's a great pleasure to introduce you to David Gilmartin of Troika Relocations in Russia. David, we've known each other for a long time. It's great to see you. It's been a while. How are you, and what's the situation right now in Russia?
I'm good. I'm good. I think the first sort of week, 10 days of lockdown or of close down of the country, everyone was a bit nervous. Everything was quiet. Clients, RMs, ourselves, we were all trying to figure out what was happening. But the last 2 weeks, I've literally been on the computer from 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. every day. A mixture of work, of emails, of webinars, of trainings, of quality seal. Just keeping busy. So that's we've, as you said, we've all come to this new reality of how to get on in this, and everyone seems to be preparing for the future. The RMCs are all active, whether it's giving information or requesting information. There's no new assignees at the moment, but there's a lot of future business being discussed in terms of RFPs that have been won, tenders that are going on, stuff like that.
I mean, it is amazing, isn't it? Because you kind of think, initially we all thought, well, you know, with aviation, everything's just going to stop. But in fact, everyone has said the same thing. What everyone's doing is an enormous amount of planning and process management and, you know, what's going to happen in the future. So I know Russia was quite, the response was quite confused at the beginning. How did that work, and where are you at now?
Yeah, well, we called it stealth by lockdown because what they just started that the president would come out and do a talk to the people, but then the next day the mayor of Moscow would come out and actually put in place some measures. So I think probably what the first thing that happened was announcing that the airlines would stop flying from a certain date, but that was 3 days hence. So everyone who wanted to get out of the country had time to do so or to get back into the country.
Okay.
Then they introduced stages of lockdown to the stage we're at now, where to go out in your car, you have to apply for a digital pass. You have to log into the Moscow government website, put in all your details, and create a digital pass, which you put on your telephone or print out. So, for instance, I needed to go to the supermarket on Monday. I hadn't planned it, so I printed out a pass and went. But you're meant to do it 5 hours before you leave, to give that pass time to get through the system. So obviously my car passed the camera somewhere, because about an hour after I got back, I got a text message from the transport department saying, please print out a pass, or please apply for a pass next time you're traveling in your car. And I'm presuming the two are connected. So they are monitoring and tracing traffic around the city. So just no unnecessary travel. If I don't need to go in, I don't go in. Or if I don't need to go anywhere, I don't go anywhere. I take the car out about once a week at the moment.
Yeah, no, same here. That is fascinating, because that's kind of, so just on a really nerdy point, is that because, I mean, are there cameras set up like there are in London in terms of like a congestion charging system, or is this just the basic surveillance system that exists like we all have in every city?
No, here one of the strange things about Russia is that in some ways it can be quite backward, but in technology it's quite advanced.
Yeah.
And no one uses cash here. I haven't touched my wallet in ages. So everything here is Apple Pay, Google Pay. We have a car sharing system that it's been locked down now, but there's about 50,000 cars in the city that I can just open my telephone, find the nearest car, and take it for a drive, and it's cheap as chips. So it's a very technologically driven, specifically Moscow, very technologically driven. But at the same time, if I cross a double white line, or if I move into the bus lane, an hour later, the traffic fine turns up on my telephone. So the camera system is very good and has been put in place, and it's necessary for a city the size of Moscow, as well, 15 million people, and the traffic was absolutely terrible. But they put in measures. They introduced bus lanes 3-4 years ago. They've introduced traffic monitoring systems and traffic measuring systems that sort of have alleviated the situation. But aligned with that, you do get the fine on your phone if you're speeding, if you're changing lanes in the wrong places and things like this. So it's a system that works. It's calmed down the traffic in the city over the last 4 or 5 years.
That's
with the introduction.
And from the point of view of then being able to implement something like this the passcode system on your phone, that the infrastructure
Mhm.
was there. So actually, it was fairly easy to do, I imagine, if everything was there.
Yeah. I think it didn't take them any time at all. And we have the Russian version of Google would be Yandex,
Uh-huh.
and Yandex has a traffic system. So if I need to go somewhere, again, I can check the phone and say, what's the quickest way to get there? What's the traffic like on the way? What's the quickest route? Do I get the metro or do I drive? And I'd say they've taken hold of that system as well to assist with monitoring all of this.
Right. I mean, it's a very interesting thing. I mean, obviously, so I've been talking with a lot of people in Sweden and Denmark and Norway, and I was watching last night Professor Giesecke, who was in charge of anyway, long story, but he's a Swedish guy who's now advising the government on whether they do lockdown or not. And what he was saying was, in a country like Sweden, you just would not be able to do something like this because there is so much emphasis on individual freedom that would be seen as very intrusive. So, I mean, in the way that in London we have the congestion charge, and obviously it's a very similar system to what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Are the Russian people accepting this? Because it's quite a high level of surveillance.
Within limits, yeah. There's high levels of surveillance, but there's also a disregard for authority at the same time.
That's a balance.
So we have, for instance, today's the 1st of May is a holiday. Monday and Tuesday are bank holidays for Labor Day. And the following weekend is the 9th of May is Victory Day. Monday 11th is a national holiday. So basically, we've got 2 weeks off now.
Right.
So everyone's heading out to their dacha, out to the country house. You were talking to Irina last week. Irina's out in her country house.
Her country house, yeah.
So half of Moscow left last night to the country house, and they will all come back again. So I know if you're in the UK or in Ireland, you're in your first house or your second house, but you're not in both.
You're not.
Here, you're allowed to be in both as long as you get the pass.
As long as you've got the pass.
You're not allowed to go up and down every day. Yeah, so you're not to do it every day, but twice a week you're allowed to move. Yeah. So you can drive down on Friday, drive up on Monday, or something like that. So there is a little amount of freedom in it. So what they're not trying to create the Madrid total lockdown. They're just trying to put some control on it and say, okay, within these controls, please stay within these controls. So the parks are closed. So, for instance, I'm in a walking group. We do the Dublin City Marathon every year, and we set ourselves challenges now that between the group of us, there's at least a marathon every day. So I've got a route of 1.5 kilometers with my house as the epicenter, and I do 4 laps or 5 laps of that most days. So that allows me to stay within close proximity of the house, but get a decent walk in anyway.
That's great. And so that is a rule. There's a limit to how far you can go away from your primary.
I'm not actually sure what the limit is. I'm just trying to stay. I haven't even checked what the limit is, to be honest with you. It could be 100 meters. It's not the 2 kilometers they have in Ireland. Yes. So I think it could be like 300 meters or something. But I'm close enough that it's fine. And there's people out walking their dogs all the time. Construction goes on. I got a construction site from me that is even today on a holiday. It's still active. They're still building away.
Wow, it's just so different, isn't it? How different countries have approached all this. So when this happened, and it wasn't that long ago, how were you and your team responding? What happened?
Well, after 3 days of total panic. No, we settled down quite quickly. We were already set up. We used Microsoft Office, SharePoint, and Dropbox. Yeah. So basically, Friday, 27th of March, we all just took our computers home and never went back. Nice. So everyone's working away on their computers. What I've talked about with the team is I know there can be difficult days and there can be good days, but please dedicate 4 hours a day to work. So some of the things we're catching up on things. Very good timing. You guys did the Quality Seal training earlier this week.
Yes, exactly.
So we had 4 people in on that, and now we're dividing up the work in terms of the quality manual, the processes, the policies. Get through that part of it first, and then we'll go into more depth on what needs Excel sheets and things like that. We're all doing the MIM training. I graduated MIM last week.
Congratulations!
Eventually,
your certificate.
Yeah, so everyone's going through that. Our consultants are certainly going through the excellence in service delivery part of that.
Great program.
And then we recently, just at the beginning of the year, we launched Relocation Online. So that still need to complete the
Yeah.
population of that. So that there's any amount of work to do, and there's like Tuesday, I was 8, 9, 10 hours in front of the computer just all day,
Yeah.
because there's still client requests coming in. We have we had a group move come in at the end of February, so late February, first week in March, they got housed,
Right.
and then end of March, 2 weeks later, they all left, but they didn't actually tell us they were leaving, so they took the keys
Really?
with them. They still got stuff in their apartments.
Right.
And since then, the project has been terminated. So we've got to terminate those apartments and try to figure out how to do that with landlords, and returning personal property to Norway, returning IT equipment to the office in Moscow. We've got all these types of things that we're trying to coordinate now. So that's keeping us busy as well.
I mean, logistically, that's just the kind of thing you don't really think about. But of course, if they've all suddenly gone home, and that's a huge amount of work for you guys. And are you?
Yeah.
Sorry, go on. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, they had left with the intention of coming back, and then the project got terminated, and they can't come back in to tidy up. So we'll go in and tidy up after them and figure that out. I've a call with the client on Monday to finalize how we're doing that. And then with the global shutdown and job losses, etc., there's part of the mobility team we've been dealing with on it got laid off yesterday, and that's when it all starts to hit home, that people you've been dealing with over an 18-month period suddenly aren't there anymore.
Yeah, that is just, I mean, that's extraordinary. And again, actually, that leads me into my next question, because obviously the responses that have been taken by governments around the world, as you know, have been vastly different. I mean, even within the European Union, they've been vastly different. But, you know, compared to the United States, for example, the response in the UK, in Denmark, in Sweden and Norway has been phenomenal. You know, the financial aid has been incredible. The Netherlands. Anything coming out of Russia right now, or are you on your own?
There is limited aid available. It's very limited. If you look at some governments are paying salaries, or the UK government is paying people to stay at home and not work. The Irish government is paying people to stay at home and work. Here, there's a subsidy of about $150 towards salaries, but it's only available to the small and medium enterprises.
Oh, okay.
The way our company is structured, we operate via a branch office in Russia, so therefore that doesn't count. So we're
that sucks.
We're not able to get anything on that. Yeah. Now it's fine. It's not huge, and we would have had to jump through 1,000 troops to get it. So I think there is in terms of banking fees. There's allowances on paying social taxes and salary taxes and things like this, which can be put off until a later date.
Okay.
We had an agreement in place with our landlady for the office in terms of deferring 50% of the rate on that, and we'll see how that progresses. It also, it's making us think now we're functioning absolutely fine without an office. Just get a couple more printers and we don't need an office at all. But we do need a physical presence, of course, but do we need to keep the same size, and do we need everyone to come to work every day in the future? I think if everyone's working on sort of rota 3-day weeks from the office and 2 days at home, or even if it's that much, I think that we will see just in that once everyone has the right tasks and the right understanding of what they're required to do and what the timelines are, there's no physical need to waste an hour and a half coming to the office in the morning.
Do you know, it's just extraordinary, isn't it? We've had exactly the same conversation with our team, and it's, you know, we're a much smaller team than yours, but, you know, we love being in the office. And I have to say, we've all said, oh, can't wait till we're back in the office again. And then we thought, well, this is ridiculous. We're paying rent, and, you know, we need to, you know, we really need to coordinate saving money. We've taken salary cuts, all that kind of stuff. Why are we paying for a physical office? It doesn't make any sense. Now that we all realize that we can do this, so long as, you know, like you say, you can all touch base at some point in some.
Yeah. So do we need X square meters, or do we need half of X? Like can we office share with there's other companies in the same situation? So some of our neighbors on the same floor, we've had conversations with them already, or they've had conversations with us saying, look, well, this is over. Let's have a look and maybe do shared office, because they don't need a 5-day week either. So just in terms of ongoing cost savings, but to have the physical presence, because everyone needs to get out of the house. Everyone likes to turn up and have the water cooler chat, if you like.
Exactly.
But you don't necessarily need the same size ongoing.
I know, it's extraordinary, isn't it? But like you say, the fact that was the first thing we said when we were like, what are we getting in the office? what about the printer? You know, we're all networked to a giant printing system which does all our scanning and stuff. And we go, no, we can get around that if we're not doing it just because we've got a printer.
Well, we officially went into lockdown on the last day of March, and we had a move-in that day already planned. So I went and organised the move-in of that. But on the way, I went through the office, picked up the blue stamp. Russia is very important to have the blue stamp at all times. So I've got the blue stamp and the printer here with me. So I don't need to go back to the office at all. It's like it's all here. This is how you function, a printer and a blue stamp.
That's brilliant. So tell me, like you were saying, you know, when you're still trying to work out some contingencies with, you know, with the people who've left, how does that practically work with your consultants? Are they working individually? Is there obviously social distancing rules that have got to be taken into account? All sorts of things about sanitisation.
No, I think for this one, where the consultants are liaising with the landlords to try and arrange everything. So once we get the keys back from the assignees, which will be probably second half of next week, I'll most likely just stagger it and go and do it myself. The actual physical presence, go and do it myself rather than ask any of the consultants to do it. I'm not happy to ask them to go and do face-to-face stuff right now. And it's a project that I can handle myself over a few days, or maybe get Olga involved if it all needs to be done in one day. But I don't want to be bringing consultants in unnecessarily into face-to-face contact.
No, that makes perfect sense. It's funny. We're working with Martina at the moment, and I think we referenced this during the Quality Seal thing, on a kind of, you know, when we come out of this, what policies need to be in place for people. And it's interesting when you say about, you know, people are looking at, you know, so what do we need to put in place to reassure the clients? Are you being asked for anything like that from any of your corporates or from your RMCs? Like, you know, how are you going to handle it when we start to open up?
Even before we closed down, the questions were coming in terms of PPE, in terms of sanitizing. We're in a lucky position. A lot of our back office is outsourced. So all of our transport, there's a professional transport company who are licensed, trained drivers with full insurances, and then we therefore don't need our own fleet. But they're maintaining sanitized cars. So after each drive passenger they have, the car is sanitized and cleaned. We've all got in our homes now. We've all got face masks. We've all got gloves,
right?
And we just maintain stock of that. That became a very popular thing. And I know in different countries in the world, there's discussions going on as to whether it's useful or not. But the first thing we did was buy face masks. Right. And then later on, the latex gloves. So even when when I go to the supermarket, I've got gloves on. So you use the hand sanitizer, etc. But I've already got my gloves on anyway.
It's fascinating how, yeah.
So those precautions will be needed on
for a while.
I think the RNCs will demand that. Yeah. But we demand it ourselves anyway. It's just necessary. We have to be careful and be safe now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And tell me, are you getting any indications from the Russian government about restrictions being loosened or dates or anything, or is it?
No. Well, actually, one thing I've given up doing. I've given up watching the news of any sort.
Same here. Hashtag
I do try paper because I have IPTV. So what I was doing was like get out of bed and turn on BBC, and it's just had to stop. So I'm not keeping up to date on exactly what's happening, but in the WhatsApp groups, etc., we do have people who are updating us, and of course you hear what you hear. The latest date they've given us is that this will continue until the 11th of May, and basically that gets us through the holidays.
Yeah,
I do expect that will continue. What they have said is that the airspace won't open until we have this lockdown. So that's an indefinite date. So there'll be very little in and out in the meantime. Yeah. There is transport within Russia, and there's a very limited number of international flights. So if they get enough people in London, Russians who want to return to Moscow, they'll put on a flight for them. But then they'll also sell tickets for anyone who wants to leave on the way out.
Right.
So there's occasional flights like that that are happening, but in general they're saying 11th of May. We don't expect this to happen, and I think they will look, as everyone else is doing, at a phased opening. That we don't expect bars to open anytime soon. allowed, back to work might be allowed, but we don't expect, there won't be any mass gatherings, there won't be any sports events. And I think Russia is a country that will accept that.
Yeah.
That will be accepted. We don't have the media-driven masses that some countries might have. So like, pretty much, I think everyone's rowing in behind this. We're doing what we can. We probably didn't start early enough, but they have put in place a good plan, and it does seem to be working. Apart from the Prime Minister announcing yesterday that he's tested positive.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Now they're all working away, and they're keeping busy, and they're keeping the country going. So hopefully he'll be okay. Hopefully that'll turn out all right. But it just came out yesterday that he tested positive.
Wow. I mean, yeah, it is quite. I think it's, you know, even though Boris Johnson was not my first choice of the vote, it was very shocking when the Prime Minister was in intensive care.
It's good that he's back. You can't insult him or give out about him while he's in hospital.
Quite. But now he can.
He's out now. We can start.
Exactly, you're right now. But it is like you say about the news. I mean, that's one of the things that I really hope will be one of the many things that will change, you know, long term. It will be the quality of journalism. This is the rolling 24-hour news, the constant speculation, the total lack of any real, you know, data, and it's just driving, like I say, it's driving me nuts to start watching.
Yeah.
Somebody will tell me if I'm allowed to do something or that I'm not, you know.
Yeah, I think there's far too much information. There's far too much focus on worrying. And like the BBC News in the morning, it's 3 hours of COVID. And it's like, put on something else, put on some cartoons or something.
I know.
So instead of that, like watching series, watching Netflix, Afterlife season 2, I binge watched.
Oh yes, just somebody else said that to me. Really good.
Not as good as season 1, but still worth the watch.
Right. Yeah.
I watched season 1 last weekend. It was bowled for the whole weekend again.
Have you watched Ozarks? Have you tried Ozarks?
Oh, finished that straight away.
Oh, yeah, I've seen season 3. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, thank goodness. I mean, you know.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah.
For some good television and for good friends and community. We keep ourselves busy. We've a very active community here. Like within the Irish community, we organise 2 bowls a year, Patrick's Day and Christmas. We had to cancel this year's Patrick's Day bowl, but we've just in the WhatsApps, we've a walking group, and they're sort of challenging each other to doing steps per day. We've a marathon, which we're all gathered into to complete. Between us, we complete a marathon a day. On Zoom, I've a pub night on Tuesday with the mates. We go to the pub on a Tuesday,
right,
and we all put on our pub the virtual background. Wednesday, I'm on with my siblings every Wednesday. Right. Friday is quiz night. I hosted bingo last Friday. I don't know what the quiz is tonight. Just stuff like that, and just keeping in touch with friends and family all the time. So I just the last 2 weeks, it's completely turned around in terms of busyness. That the Zoom started off as something to keep us sane, and now it's actually can I get off work on time to get into the Zoom call?
I know. It's so true.
Yeah.
No, it is. It's amazing. I mean, it's just brilliant that we have, you know, we have access to this kind of technology. How difficult this would have been even 5 years ago. You know, and you're right. The way I think all of us have stayed positive has been communicating and continuing to stay in touch, and you know, virtually staying in touch rather than getting together. Clearly we can't, but hopefully we will soon. David, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for taking the time. I'd love to catch up with you again in a month or so and see where we are.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going nowhere.
That would be great. Yeah, exactly. I'll be here. But listen, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure as always. It's great to see you as well. Glad you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Take care. Speak to you soon.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.